So here's a quick question. What's common between video games and AI? Turns out there's a very interesting and very pivotal kind of connection. So as video games were getting really popular in the 90s, especially on the PC platform, everybody wanted better picture quality and everybody wanted better frame rates. And it turns out that the computer's CPU, which was the central processing unit, is not really suitable for that kind of task. So the manufacturers of chips had to come up with something called a GPU, or a graphics processing unit, which essentially was suited to accelerating graphics, giving you better frame rates and dealing with that part of computing. And it became a very specialized kind of field. I remember Nvidia and AMD used to have the best graphics cards. They were competing very closely. I was a gamer back in the 90s, I still am. And back then we used to save up a lot of money to get the latest graphics card and make sure that we can play our favorite games in the best quality, highest frame rate, all that kind of stuff. It was quite a culture back then amongst gamers, just as it is now. But the interesting connection is that in the 2000s, when AI researchers started training neural networks, what they realized was that CPUs weren't very suitable for that task either. And it turns out that GPUs were. They needed the computing structure, the architecture of GPUs, not CPUs. And because video gaming was such a huge field and it was such a competitive field, and there were so many GPUs and development was happening all across the world, and many companies were competing to make the best GPUs, they could just buy the GPUs off the shelf and use that to train their neural networks. They didn't really have to make custom hardware, which might have made things a little more difficult, might have slowed things down. Some things may not have come about. So, for example, the speech recognition program that was happening at Google in the 2000s, that happened on GPUs. They set up a bunch of GPUs. Although they had thousands and thousands of servers with CPUs, they needed the GPUs to make this work. So that's really the connection. It was essentially the video gaming industry that gave the GPUs to the world. That was why the market was so hot for GPUs. And essentially the same GPUs then began to be used for training neural networks and causing the AI revolution today. And of course, everybody knows this whole story with Nvidia and how much computing power is needed for the future of AI and all of that kind of stuff. So the story continues. But these are the kinds of very interesting facts in this book that I'm reading, which is called Genius Makers by Cade Metz. Excellent writing, full of all these nuggets, a great story about how AI came to be and all the personalities that led it here.